Well, this spring, Talk Business and Politics and Hendrix College have been in the field with some one-time polls to gauge sentiment among older voters and younger voters. We begin with older voters. 622 statewide voters surveyed, ages 65 plus. Do you feel that the level of influence that older Arkansans have on public policy issues and decisions by lawmakers is too great, too small, or just about right? Only 8% felt it was too great, 42.5% too small, 35.5% about right. Thinking about retirement, how much currently or how much do you expect to rely on Social Security? Will it be a major source of income, a minor source of income, or not a source at all? 61% of those over 65 say it will be a major source of income, 32% minor source of income, and the rest not a source at all or don't know. Here to talk with me about those poll numbers is Dr. Barth of Hendrix College. Welcome. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, Roby.
Let's talk about this older Arkansan survey. We actually did this back in March, but it's fairly evergreen, I think, in terms of some of the information that we've got here. This is a question I want to start with. These are 65 plus. Do you feel that the level of influence that older Arkansans have on public policy and decisions by lawmakers is too great, too small, just about right? Too small, 42.5%, the winner there. Are we not listening to our elders?
I think most folks would say 65 and above have quite a bit of influence on politics, but there is this kind of sense of, kind of lingering disempowerment for this group that I think does feel a little bit under assault from, some of the public policy discussions, because so many of the entitlement programs are ones that very much are ones that are so relevant to 65 and older folks, and I think they feel, very uncomfortable that they don't have enough of a voice in discussions about those issues.
Yeah, and to illustrate that, the question that we asked about thinking about retirement, how dependent will you be on Social Security? 61% said it would be a major source of their income. Right. This kind of defines why Social Security is so untouchable in politics.
Yeah, we saw this on several questions in this survey, but that there is just, just a real commitment to the necessity of Social Security, of Medicare as we know it now.
Yeah, 70.5% say Medicare should be maintained in its current form, not expanded.
So there is a reason these are known as the third rail of American politics, because 65 and older do vote in large numbers and are very committed to these programs staying constant. And we did see some interesting subgroup analysis here when you look at 65 to 74-year-olds and then 75 and above. 75 and above folks, especially when it comes to Social Security, they are actually less dependent upon the program than those who are 65 to 74, some of whom, have not even yet retired, think they will be. They are much more, have a sense that it's going to be a fundamental part of their retirement years.
Maybe a little bit more just uncertain as to how far your money's going to stretch.
Exactly.
We asked this question too about older Arkansans. Are they confident they're going to have the resources to provide for their care until their deaths? A touchy subject to ask questions about.
We ask it last.
Yeah, but at the same time, you need to know this in terms of public policy. And so it was a real split here that 49% confident that they would have the resources for sufficient care, right around 42%, a little under 42% worried that they will not. What does that tell you about just how close those numbers are and how really important the difference between those answers are?
Yeah, I think those are really fundamental differences about what one's life is going to be like. And there's just a lot of agitation among elderly Arkansans about what their quality of life is going to be like. And some folks, it really is a kind of have and have not kind of question. Some folks really have a sense of confidence that they've got it all together. And then a big chunk of folks who just really don't yet have that confidence that they have it together. Now, we do see the division again between 65, 74-year-olds and 75 and aboves, because 75 and aboves, they really once you're at that age, they feel pretty good that they are, as a group, that they really do have what's going to be needed for the rest of their lives. But especially during that period where folks are moving from the workplace into retirement, that's where the stress is kind of the highest. And that means, from a political perspective, where these issues are going to just be the most salient.
Yeah. All right, so these are older Arkansans. We actually surveyed younger Arkansans. We looked at some millennial attitudes, and we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back and have Shelby Rose from KATV join you and me to talk more about that. Thank you, and stick around.
Good.
Stick around. There's more right after this. Welcome back. In a separate statewide poll of voters under the age of 30, we asked some crucial questions. 402 Arkansans surveyed between the ages of 18 and 30 years old, all cell phone calls. In your opinion, what's the most important problem or issue facing Arkansas at this time? 16% identified the economy and jobs as their #1 issue, 11% education and schools, and it was just a hodgepodge everywhere else, with other being 25% and don't know being 30%. We asked about the issue of gun safety and freedom. 43% of those young Arkansans think that there should be more regulation, 13% less regulation, 41% about right. On marijuana, should it be legal in all cases, legal only for medical purposes, or illegal in all cases? 55% say it should be legal all the time, 37% legal only for medical purposes, and the rest think it should be illegal in all cases or don't know. We are here to talk about some of these poll numbers. I have Shelby Rose from KATV who is joining us here. She is a reporter with them and did some work on this young Arkansan poll. Dr. Jay Barth from Hendrix College, professor of political science. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thanks.
Jay, let's begin with this. There was 18 to 30-year-olds. This was a class project in some ways. You had an educational component to this.
Yeah, I had 4 students who worked on this project, who helped design the survey questions themselves, and then did the analysis, did some presentation on that, visit with Shelby on the findings and their takeaways. And I think they did a very nice job of trying to capture a generation of which they're a part. And I thought they were a particularly apt group to design this survey.
Shelby, you interviewed a few of them. What was your impression of just how into this they were and what they understood of what they were doing?
It was very interesting. They really had a lot of insights into what they were doing, and they seemed like they were just very knowledgeable on this poll and the findings and kind of what these findings meant, and were able to really analyze it, and it was awesome.
Yeah, so interesting to me that the 2 biggest issues that they felt Arkansas was facing were economy, jobs, and education. This is something we typically see in standard polling.
Yeah.
Does it surprise you that younger people didn't have some other higher issue that ranked up there beyond that?
Yeah, a couple of things that stood out in that regard. First off, those 2 issue areas, which are very common, were a little bit lower than with this group than with other groups. And it felt like the younger folks' issue areas were a lot more diverse and dispersed. They haven't yet kind of locked in on kind of the issues that are most emphatic to them. I think they may have a variety of things that they care deeply about as individuals. The other thing is that there were some issues that didn't pop. The environment, for instance, I think it was at 1% as an issue area that they saw as most important to the state. Some other issues that get a lot of airplay didn't. One of the students who kind of took the lead on that question also then did some work examining that group of things that people answered through open-ended questions. And a lot of poverty issues actually popped up there. Homelessness, food insecurity, some of those issues really popped. And so as a group, I think there are some issues related to inequality and poverty that this generation is very conscious of, that weren't in our explicit list of questions.
Let's talk about a couple of the hot button issues, Shelby. Let's talk about firearms. Should they be more regulated, less regulated, or about the same? You could slice and dice this 2 ways. You could say that 56. Well, hold on. You could say that 54% say it's about right, or there should be less regulation. You could say 84% think it's about right or need more regulation. What was your takeaway?
Well, I'm from Texas. I'm new to Arkansas, so I'm from the South. I know that Second Amendment is very important to a lot of people here. So it's very interesting that a lot of these millennials just really thought that there needed to be more regulation, because we grew up in this era of school shootings. Columbine happened when we were kids, and it's just escalated since then. So we're very conscious of regulations of firearms and so on and so forth. So I feel like a lot of people have that opinion. And so, I wasn't too surprised, but it was still surprising nonetheless being in Arkansas.
Yeah, 43% said that they favored more regulation. How about marijuana? We asked a question about whether the legal status of marijuana, should it be legal in all cases, 55%, legal only in medical purposes, 37%. Again, Shelby, were you surprised that 55% said legal in all cases?
Not at all, honestly. I mean, it's just the trend. It's going upwards. We have a lot of states that have it legal in all cases. We just got medical marijuana in Arkansas a couple weeks ago, week and a half ago, so that doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
Yeah, it's just very interesting. This issue is just going to be gone in a generation, I think, as a political issue. I mean, there will still be some states where fighting it out over whether it's medical or recreational, but the trend line here, as Shelby said, are just so clear. That issue is really disappearing very
One
swiftly.
that's not, though, is the death penalty. This is Arkansas has always had a conservative bent on the death penalty. The South typically has a conservative bent on the death penalty, and in these millennials, you still see by a 20% margin, 54 to 34%, supporting the death penalty over life without parole. Again, you're in that generation, Shelby. Do you think that number speaks to people that you are in the same circles with?
Well, what's interesting is that 12% said that they don't even know. And so I feel like a lot, in my personal circle and just people that I've spoken to, a lot of people are very conflicted about this issue because it is a very touchy subject. And so, no, it doesn't surprise me because we do have the death penalty here in the state. And so people generally would like to support things that are already here and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's very conflicting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Race. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jake.
We did a big survey on the death penalty a few years ago of Arkansans, and this was a little bit more moderate stance on the issue than other Arkansans. But you're right. It's still pretty much in sync with.
So let's break down some of the analytics in here in terms of the demographics, I should say. How would you describe your own political viewpoint? Very liberal to very conservative. We had the whole range in there. Basically, moderate to conservative was the winner in all of this right here. Jay, as someone, we look at this a lot. I would have expected it to be a little bit more liberal.
More liberal, but I think the big takeaway is that this is, in Arkansas, 18 to 29-year-olds appear to be a very moderate generation. And whether that moderation is from some mixture of traditional conservatism and a little more new liberalism, or whether it's folks who are just kind of wanting to stay away from some of the pitched battles. I think you saw that in some of your interviews on one of the segments attached to this polling. Kind of a desire to kind of get away from labels and really focus more on issues that are most relevant to their lives.
Yeah, because the second part of my story, I pretty much gave this poll to a group of millennials. They were in the older side of millennials in like the late 20s, early 30s, but neither one of them or none of them really wanted to specifically define that they were a liberal or a Democrat. They really said that they base candidates on issues. They don't go to the polls and go Democrat, 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 and just check all the boxes, or Republican. They really want to look at the candidates, look at what their issues are, and base their beliefs off of that. And it just makes them, really care about that than picking sides.
Yeah, and not surprising, Jay, we'll end on this right here. If the 2020 presidential election were today, it doesn't look like, if only 18 to 29-year-olds show up, it doesn't look like Donald Trump would carry Arkansas, which would be a huge departure from what we've seen in our general polling with Trump's popularity.
Yeah, his brand is, very damaged with 18 to 29-year-olds. Nationally, we know even more damaged than Arkansas, but that has certainly carried over to Arkansas. That, it's a moderate group generally, but that president is someone that is clearly not in sync with this generation.
Yeah, that didn't surprise me whatsoever. I mean, with the circles that I run and just any millennials that I've spoken to, it's very far and few between to come across any good comments about President Trump.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a lot of criticisms, especially in my age group.
Right. Well, thank you both for your analysis and insights on this. Shelby Rose with KATV, Dr. Jay Barth with Hendrix College. Thank you both.
Great.
We're back with more right after this.